today's session, titled Santiago Bose, Painter Magician, is the book official launch of the book of the same title, published by ArtAsiaPacific and Silverlens. Our three panelists will provide us with different perspectives. To introduce each of them, Lil Bose was born and raised in the Philippines. She has written for newspapers, art weeklies and magazines, and works published and translated around the world. In 2002, she published the YA novel Una and Miguel, A Long Shot at Love. She lives in Southern California. Kawayan de Guia works across painting, installation, and sculpture, and incorporates an eclectic mix of objects into his wall-based and even sculptural works and other art projects. His works humorously comment on a multitude of issues, from the histories of occupation, trade, Philippine history and culture, to the relationships between community and commodities. He lives in Baguio City, one of the main art centers here in the country, situated in the Cordillera area. Like his mentors, Santiago Bose, Ben Cab, Roberto Villanueva, and of course his father, Kidlat Tahimik, who were part of the Baguio Arts Guild. He's deeply embedded in Cordilleran culture and interested in the heritage of indigenous cultures of the region. Kawayan is also a curator and author of key projects presenting the artists of his community, and we're actually working with him and other artists from Baguio for a forthcoming exhibition in Ateneo Art Gallery. Chris Liu is founder of C/O Curatorial Office, a curatorial consulting firm. He has over 15 years of experience working at American museums and arts nonprofits. He was the founding chief artistic director at Horizon Art Foundation and Outland Art, and is also a former curator at the Whitney Museum of American Art, where he oversaw the Emerging Artist Program and was co-curator of the 2017 Whitney Biennial. Prior to joining the Whitney, he was assistant curator at MoMA PS1 and organized many exhibitions there. He has contributed to several publications, including Art Asia Pacific, Art Journal, BOM, Huffington Post, and Moose. We'll start with Lil. There will be a presentation that will be looping while she's speaking, and then to be followed by Kawayan, and then Chris is the last speaker before we open the floor to questions. So Lil.
Okay, so this book was a couple of years in the making, and we worked with Dr. Patrick Flores, who curated 3 shows for Silverlens to put together a very comprehensive retrospective of his work for UP Vargas Museum first, and then for Silverlens in, I want to say, starting 2017, 2018, 2019, 2019. Yeah, my memory is really bad. But, so this book is a culmination of those 3 shows, and he sent over his remarks because he couldn't be here. So I'm reading them for you right now. And he says, it's a pleasure to offer a few words on this launch of the book on Santi. Needless to say, it was my honor to contribute to this precious publication on Santi and to curate 4 exhibitions on him, beginning with a survey of works from the family collection at the Vargas Museum in 2012 and 3 exhibitions for Silverlens during the pandemic years. If memory serves me, I first met Santi in Brisbane in 1996 when we were at the 2nd Asia-Pacific Triennale. After speaking in a panel, Santi came up to me to counsel that I should speak more forcefully and that I should be more assertive, which, if you know Patrick, makes sense. But I told him somewhat sheepishly that I don't think that was in my nature, And I also told him that he was a tough act to follow. During the open forum of the panel, he posed the pointed question to the superstar of the hour, the Japanese artist Takashi Murakami, asking him how he could produce very expensive things when in the region many had very little to eat. And that was surely a curved ball thrown at the panel, and I can still picture Santi standing in the cavernous auditorium speaking truth to Murakami. So I hope the book we are launching today will give you a sense of the dauntlessness that Santi had lived by and continues to share in our memory and in her art history. That said, Santi was not all fire and storm. His humor, practical and parodic, should dispel this impression as it had shaped his trickster inventiveness across much that he has done and built and nurtured, from family to art to collectives to festivals to cultural politics to art world debates. May Santi shed light on those who seek it and rain on the parade of those who refuse it. Thank you to Pat. So, I guess for me, thinking about this book and thinking about what to talk about my dad is a very interesting, comes at a very interesting point in my life, right? So I live in Southern California. I have not lived in the Philippines for like 22 years. And every time I say that, it's a shock to me. I'm like, I haven't lived in this country for 22 years. But everything that I am, everything that I do in the United States is wholly shaped by, lessons that I learned from him. So growing up in the Philippines, as a daughter of an artist like Santi, like he taught us post-colonial theory during a time when we had no language for such things. No, we had no language for what decolonial was or decolonializing anything was. We just knew from him na you shouldn't listen to Milli Vanilli, you should listen to Joey Ayala. Parang, ang baduy naman ang pinapakinggan mo, always, ganyan. Like, why are you listening to that for? You should listen to Grace Nono instead of, di ba, parang Britney Spears, ganyan. So, a lot of it was really focusing our attention on who we were and who we were, our identities as a people, and recognizing that what we were was valuable, like who we are as a people was valuable. And these are things that as I grew up in Manila, and not in Baguio, and then later on turning into an adult again in the United States, both away from mainstream culture, or having this identity that I held dear to myself, to my identity, knowing that I had, kumbaga, my duende was not mainstream culture, and I knew who I was as a Filipino, apart from the United States, apart from like mainstream Manila. It's very freeing. And I think for Santi Bose as an artist, discovering who he was through art and creating that visual language and figuring out what it meant to be Filipino and portraying that to the world without necessarily needing, again, that language or that structure of like decolonial, like whatever that is, right? What we use today is like we're decolonial or post-colonial. He didn't need all that. He just had like his paint, he had the materials he had indigenous materials, he had the work and the geography of Baguio, he had the geography of Manila. He was able to take where he was and use his perspective and uses in his Filipino identity to kind of frame the frame where he was and who he was, and kind of put it on his canvases or his installations or the work that he was putting together, and portray that, and that, I think that the result of that, his work then becomes very viscerally identifiable for many viewers, right? So people who look at his work now are able to say, and like my friends and I were talking about this the other day, like you don't need to know art. You don't need to be an educated art theorist to know that this is a work of a Filipino, or that, you know, you can step in, you can see it, you can feel it, diba? Parang you can feel na this is as Filipino as like looking at a jeepney and like parang looking at a pun, Jesus knows who does not pay, mga ganon. Parang the same jokes, you can see it in his work. So I find value in that personally, and I hope that people who are reading the book and seeing his work again, like 20 years after he's died, also see that in a different in a different time, in a different place, no matter where they are. So I guess that's my spiel. Something from, oh,
We'll start with the video first.
yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to do that? Or
Yeah. Just a few words. I was really. When did you text me? Was it on? So 5 days ago, I didn't know I was supposed to be here, and now I'm here. And I understand why Butts wanted me here because, well, you're from New York and you're from the U.S. You needed some Baguio, some Baguio-ness. And as of yesterday, I mean, it's my first time to meet you, Chris. Lil came up to Baguio for a day, and we saw each other with Nanay Catherine for an hour with Tita Peggy, and we were like, oh, what are we gonna do tomorrow? And I was like, oo nga, what are we gonna do tomorrow? But it's a book launch, and the first thing that popped into my head, I think it would be nice to hear Santi's voice. So I pulled out stills from Tatay's film, Why is Yellow, The Middle of the Rainbow. And I think it's a 3-4 minute clip, and we can start from there and just go for it. This is in Cafa Amapola.
Under Cory, there's a new democratic space. Artists are riding high on this new energy, a kind of cultural renaissance, determined not to let freedom be suppressed once again. The memory of the dark days under the dictatorship lingers, when artistic expression was muted and political dissent had to be done in silence. Today, it's a bit different.
Put your initials here.
Santi, I think with the new government, you still want to be the fire chief of the Baguio City.
No, we're just making fun of them because once they're in power, they'll make monkeys out of us.
They will? Why?
You know what's happening to this
So-called nigga.
so-called. Oh, sige.
This is
Lagay
a
lang
scene
natin
with
yan.
Pepita
Hintayin
Boss.
natin ang camera.
And I think this is Santi's Traveling Bones.
Santi's doing his moving bones installation again. This time beside John Hay Gate, right by your school. Ask him about John Hay.
Santi, sasali mo yung style ng John Hay?
Siyempre, importante ang John Hay sa composition.
Okay.
Kidlat, you want to help me put this up? These are the bones after the Holocaust, after John Hay attracted the nuclear bombs. Taas! You can put these bones anywhere. Do you know the first bomb that was dropped after Pearl Harbor was dropped here in John Hay? Mabuti na lang, di nuclear bomb.
Kahapon yun, Tito Santi. Ngayon, looks is the real thing.
Pepito, look proud. John Hay was a proud person.
Sino ba si John Hay?
Alam mo, Kidlat, si John Hay was the American Secretary of State who decided to annex the Philippines. His policy was benevolent assimilation.
Ano ba ang benevolent assassination?
So I think
Benevolent
Lil and
assassination,
myself,
benevolent
Tata and Santi had a
assimilation.
lot of parallels
Same
with
thing. It's killing us
questioning.
softly.
soft power. Spot Lil.
Every year, since 1976, I draw one of the 12 animals who went to the deathbed of Buddha. Alam nyo, the Chinese calendar revolves around these 12 animals.
Eh, paano kami? 1975. Ako, January.
You're still the year of the tiger, pero ikaw, Kidlat, you're the year of the rabbit. And I'll paint that next year. Who of you are born in the year of the tiger? Those of you who were born in the year 1974 are supposed to be strong women.
Very Santi humor. Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course, in China, they would be ashamed if their girls born in the year of the tiger. Mabuti na lang, you're here in Baguio and not in China.
Well, that's all I have. Ay.
But that's cool. You see, like we all came from this parang community of artists, you know, like we grew up together.
The summers especially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess my Santi is not Santi the god, you know, the art god son Santi, but more like Tita Santi, who perhaps you get stoned with him and listen to his stories all night and help him mix paint and do some erasures for his emulsion transfers. And well, I have to thank the Bose family for allowing me to stay in Santi's home in Baguio for, my God, you won't believe, 15 years. 15 years from 2007, I think. And, well, a lot of people are intrigued by that house. They say there's spirits and all that. Well, I think I kind of knew the Santi ghost, and oftentimes when I would be painting way into the night and you know, I'd finish my work, I managed to produce a whole lot of work in that basement, and I would always say I would just get possessed by Santi. So effortlessly, you know, and I really love that studio. But in terms of the cultural, let's say, landscape of Baguio, I'd really want to stress that people like Santi, my father, Robert, even here Tita Laida, Joknot, Manix, all these great people have contributed their love to Baguio's heritage. I mean, I can say that when I was growing up, for example, I think there was still a big, kumbaga mahihiya ka kapag magsusot ka ng bahag or to chew the betel nut, no? But I think because of the efforts of the Baguio Arts Guild, this awareness of being, of belonging, you know, that the identity of the Cordillerans, of being from Baguio, lumakas yun. And I think by the time, in the 2000s, wala na si Robert, wala na si Santi. Ayun na, may sense of pride, a very strong sense of pride. And I think that really has to be, I think artists and cultural workers have to be accredited to that, and not just government employees or the left.
And I think there was a huge effort on their part. Like, it was a real community effort. All those artists came together and put together like the festivals, like the Baguio International Festivals, and connected with artists from Bacolod, from Manila, and brought people from international artists also to come to Baguio, to come and not sell work necessarily, but just share their work and show it to the people in Baguio, to show it to the people in the Philippines. And I think that developed among the people in Baguio and in the Philippines. This really huge appreciation for art as art, like for art's sake, ganun.
No one buys art in,
Yeah.
in Baguio. Up to now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we can move on to Chris.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
yeah. Well, that's right. And yesterday, during the whole we were talking with Butz and Lil, she mentioned the Sagada mural, which I completely forgot about the mural, and perhaps the world did, because this happened. We did the mural. It's called, I think, the Reimagining. What was it?
What's the original title? I have to ask my mom. What's the original title?
Bildilig. Okay. Bilbiligan. Okay, I think it's.
So Boy Yuchenko commissioned the original mural in the 70s, in 1980.
81 or so. And we returned to it. This is in St. Mary's School. And it was really, how do you restore Santi mural? I mean, Santi used so many different types of material, from newspaper cuttings to paper mache. But anyway, I think we were around 15, 15 to 20 of us who went up and enjoyed a month retouching, approaching, reinterpreting bits of the mural here and there. And this happened a week, the opening was a week before the lockdown. So it was really like, it was nick of time, and that's why we had 15 artist friends staying with us throughout the whole 6 months of the pandemic, because they were locked down from the Sagada trip. But yeah, I guess this was our big thank you to Santi and Santi's spirit and his sharing of many, many things. And take a drive up to Sagada, I guess, if you want to say hello to his.
Beautiful mural.
These are now the how it looked in '81 when he was making it, but a lot of it was really, we only had a few photographs that we could base it on, but yeah. Chris.
Great. So I come to Santi's work through Silverlens, so I did not have the opportunity to meet him in his lifetime, unfortunately. But through the curatorial consulting work that I've done with the gallery, they invited me to organize a group exhibition in the New York space, which happened at the end of last year. And that was an opportunity to present Santi's work in New York City and to bring it into a different kind of context. And what I was interested in thinking about was ideas around land, place, memory, which I feel is so fundamental to his own work, and putting that into dialogue with two other artists, who are Stephanie Saihuko, who's a Filipino artist based in San Francisco, and Michael Ju, who is a Korean-American artist based in New York. And I think between all three of them, they're really thinking about specificities of place, teasing out ideas of history or countering kind of established narratives around history. And one of the things that I think I felt important to it was also to think about a critique of coloniality and that kind of deeper understanding of history, which I would argue within the show was also about this idea that for the United States to understand itself was also to understand the colonial critique of artists like Santi, and that the history of a single nation is also extends well beyond its borders, because what was felt certainly went well beyond that into other countries in that sense. And to understand the cultural production of artists like Santi working from the Philippines, but also thinking internationally and living in a global context. And I would say that him as an artist really set the model as how to function as a global artist before that idea really became kind of current in this today's age, where many of us are traveling for biennials and art fairs and all of these things. And I think he did it in a way, or from what I understand, is based on relationships, about fostering communities that certainly started in Baguio, but also stretched internationally. Last night I was kind of thinking about what are some of those artist relationships that he's had, and he was so close with artists like Pasita Abad and Carlos Villa. And it's interesting because it's not by accident, but both of those artists are also so deeply international. Of course, you have Abad traveling around the world and going and living in so many countries, but also Carlos Villa as an important artist and educator in San Francisco who did multiple symposia around global art before it became cool and kind of taken on by other curators, that he was already doing it in ways that I feel is really under-recognized. And I think it was through the symposium and that education that you have the rise of curators like Okwi Enwizor and others that really kind of take that on in a different scale. But it wouldn't be without that kind of work that was being done by Carlos. And then another person, of course, is Jimmy Durham, who he was very close to. The writing that Jimmy was doing in New York when they met in the 80s as this kind of shaman that is coming. I think there was a funny line about don't give him any bamboo. And also Jimmy as another artist who then leaves the United States famously, moves to Mexico, to Berlin, Italy as well. So another artist that kind of really takes on that sense of a global life. And I know Kawayan has also made a work in homage to Jimmy in that way. And so to see these connections, I think, is deeply important because it sets a different example of how to live within a global art world. And it's not just hopping around because of the market is there, but it's really about bridging these connections. Another interesting thing is that he also had a show, I believe in 1986 in Brooklyn at a space called Minor Injury, which was an artist-run space that was started by Iso Bak, who is a Korean artist who went to school in New York and then ultimately goes back to South Korea in the early 90s and really starts the contemporary art movement at that time in Korea, kind of taking the conversations that he had and what he learned in New York City and then going back. So there, again, it's like not by accident that Santi's in dialogue with these people that are really planting the seeds for very much of the art world that we know today.
Thank you for your insights and sharings. I guess one of the questions I'd like to ask is, Santi was part of that generation of artists when the concept of Asia Pacific was still forming. How do you think he would have navigated with the current situation now, globally or even nationally, given what we are experiencing now? How do you think he would have addressed this earlier in the session, in the preview session? It was mentioned how it was mentioned how the art society is regressing. No? So I wonder what your insights would be in that.
You mean politically?
Culturally, politically.
Well, I mean, as material, I mean, just material, it's, wow, he would be really a kingpin, I think, if he were around. He would hog the stage. And, I mean, you know, you were talking yesterday, like, it would, you would just wonder, what would Santi do today with Trump back, with the Duterte administration? What kind of work would he have produced? It's really, that's something Santi, I mean, doon na siguro yung magician-ness ni Santi. And yeah, the whole regional thing, I mean, the Baguio Arts Guild being one of the first art festivals that really connected what you were saying, you know, people from different parts of the region, sort of on the same line of thought, and you know, you're creating that network, and sa pity naputol, medyo naputol yan, but it gave birth to a lot of other, you know, Bacolads going on with Viva, and I mean, it's happening all over the world, small festivals here and there, big and small, so.
And I think he understood, you know, like he was one of the people who, one of the artists who knew what intersectional meant and like kind of lived it before the term was made popular, right? So, I mean, he used materials intersectionally. He created connections with not just other artists, but with writers and filmmakers and
Dancers.
dancers, photographers. I mean, creating these communities that promoted like art and culture that, and also connections with like thinkers, right? So political thinkers. Because he was, I think like one thing about my dad was he was very curious. He was he always wanted to know more about something. So he's a really consummate researcher. And so he was always researching things. He wanted to know more about history. He wanted to know more about like the ways materials work. And he was always interested in technology. So when something was new, he wanted to learn more about it. So he was kind of like one of the, he was really interested in the internet when it was new. He was really interested in like, he was always trying to look up things on bulletin boards and
Pirate radio,
Pirate radio.
Radio Sagada. That was
Yeah.
one of his last things.
yeah, he you know tried to like one thing what we were talking about was he tried to recreate like Radio Sagada wasn't, it was a metaphor, the radio.
The radar, the bamboo.
The bamboo radar was a metaphor. It was like a metaphor for what he wanted to do, like indigenous radio. But also, he was literally trying to create an indigenous radio station for the Cordillera. So, I mean, he was an artist like who did visual work, but he also wanted to create other things to communicate and like express like his ideas and put them forward. So I think, you know, in the age of Donald Trump, actually, that was one thing I wanted to like talk. I was so interested in like talking to Chris about was in the age of Donald Trump, where we are kind of seeing the rise of fascism and authoritarianism, and here it was Duterte. Parang like, what does this Santiago Bose's artwork mean, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels more relevant than ever. I think another important model that he is in that way of giving voice and recognition to those who are overlooked, of looking at indigenous artists, indigenous practices, and using that as like a counter narrative to European modernism. And I think that especially think about the writing that he had done in the 90s around this, only now in the last few years, say if you think about the focus on indigenous artists at the last Venice Biennale, it's taken this many decades to get there. And I think now that we're at this place where so many groups or peoples are kind of under attack, that the more, if you're able to give voice and kind of give a platform to those people, it's like that's kind of the important kind of model that he really is example for.
So what you just said, Chris, does that echo the response that you saw in the public when the exhibit was ongoing with his works?
Yeah, I think
it's the kind of feedback from the viewers.
Yeah, I think a lot of it for many New York audiences, the work is new and it's something that they're discovering, and it's exciting to see, work that we included early work from the 70s all the way to works that were late in his life that really resonated with these issues. And I think also to see it materially, which is so important, that it's not just the ideas around it, but to see it in person, to think about the surfaces. I think about that idea of like that abrasion and erasure that's happening on the surface of, say, some of the Traveling Bones works. It's really amazing because those actions also speak to what he's tapping into in terms of the ideas.
We'd like to open the floor to some questions.
Or bold
Maybe.
statements.
We have a big...
Or memories,
yes,
someone
memories.
said.
Actually, memories. We have a contingency here from Baguio. Family and friends.
Kung si Manix, alam ko kakanta na eh.
Oh, Manix. Yeah, the Baguio Arts Guild. Maybe Manix, if you can share. Sorry to put you on the spot because... meron ba? Yeah, I'll just how did it all start? Or I guess you were much younger then?
I'm old. I think I was old enough to be. Santi's place was the kind of like a hangout place for young, artist kunkundit. We call it kunkundit because they don't look at us as some serious artists. Yeah. And I was photographer. I was trying to do photography during the time, and also music. And I think Santi is one of those mentor also, in the way that he said that you can. What do you want to be? Like you want to be a photographer, you want to be a musician, or something like that. You have to kind of create your own language, a certain kind of vernacular, a vocabulary that identifies who you are, and allow yourself to manifest the inner self. Parang medyo pagka spiritual Santi yun eh. And with that, so yung mga sensitibo, those sensitive young people who've taken it on, were able to adopt that kind of like the DNA and the creative gene pool of Santiago Bose that kind of like lingered and became an anchor of their creative expression. Like for me, the biggest influence is that cultural DNA that I long for when I became exiled from the Philippines, being a migrant to Australia. So a lot of my influences were still, based on that cultural longing of being a Filipino. And with Santi's kind of like occasional visit in Australia, we have this kind of strong discussion and reiterates the importance of having that foundation, which is like the mountain kind of the fog, the mystic of the fog, that kind of like, you have to reveal that mystic of the fog. So, yun.
Hello. And I wanted to ask about the process of making the book. Were there any interesting things that you found in the archive, or things that surprised you, or things even that escaped the archive that you couldn't include in the book. And because nga si Santi had a lot of material in the works that he made, so a lot of I would assume that a lot of the qualities of certain works had already disintegrated. So maybe you can talk about that as well, the difficulties in archiving and documenting.
That's a really, really good question because, so we worked with a designer in New York who did not know his work before he started designing it. And I want to say that the archive of images that he had to work with was thousands. And basically we just said, here, go look through these and you can decide what to put in the book. So parang naloka siya. Kasi, and he really, I mean, props to him because he is an amazing designer. Paul Serre is one of the best book designers in New York, I think. He really went and did a crash course on Santi's work, but he really studied from the big to the small, like how can I translate into kind of like a physical, tangible thing, the way that it looks, and how can I highlight the parang, like the way that it's not a flat, it's not a flat thing, right? So what's that mean? Like the dimensionality of the work. So like some of the images are in close-up, some of them are blown up like really closely, and then, but also the scope of his work, like there are murals, there are images, there's paraphernalia, like tickets, posters. So there were a lot of surprises in that we realized that my dad had archived a lot of his work really well, but also I think putting the book together made us realize that the many ways that you can display a painting, or the ways that you have to display a painting in a book is really, I mean, you need a special brain, or you need a special eye to be able to say, this work, to be able to see like a 5x5 painting and like be able to translate it into a page needs special care, and the way to do that takes some thinking when you're doing it. And I think that was a surprise. But also, there was a lot of, we had so many meetings about like, what's gonna be in the final list of images, like how many, what highlights what Patrick is saying in the book, because like really his essays were the crux of the book. And so we had to really hone down, like what are the images that really illustrate what he's saying, and like, so we had many meetings about that, and so that was where most of the care was taken when we were putting the book together. So we had a lot of meetings with the designer, and I think that was really important when we put the book together. That's where most of our time went.
This is the second book, right?
And the archival materials are with the family in New York, here in the Philippines?
In the
Here
Philippines.
in Philippines. Okay. Yes, another question.
Hi, I just have a question. So I'd presume that watching your fathers having quite a strong creative friendship, you might have also been influenced by them as well. Can you possibly tell us like any moments of personal like lessons you've learned watching them, and how that's influenced you as global creatives?
Sorry, watching the film?
Just watching their fathers in terms of like how they work together on their projects.
I guess in your case also, your tatay, fathers.
Sorry, I wasn't.
Yeah, the question was like, what have your fathers influenced in terms of like watching them, and then like how has that influenced your own work?
Oh, we were brainwashed. We were completely The same tactics that the United States government did to the rest of the world, he did to us the other way around. McDonald's was evil. Exactly. Listen to Joy Ayala and not Millie Vanilli. Really like
No
that.
McDonald's. What was it? What was it? What was it that your dad? So a good story is that when they were kids and we would hang out, when they were not with their dad, Kidlat, Kawayan, and Kabu, he didn't hang out with us always because he was littler. But when Kidlat and Kawayan were with us and their dad was not around, they would be like, let's go to McDonald's. Let's go to McDonald's so we can eat McDonald's because they were not allowed to eat in McDonald's.
Slay the father.
It was an act of resistance, right?
No, but it's really true. Like, for example, my father refused to celebrate Christmas and instead created Rizal Day. He would always try to find ways of let's look at the Filipino, let's look at ours, something that's local, something that's natural. So I guess that was our world, and I guess it reflects in the way I function as a person and as an artist.
I think for me it's different, right? I live in Los Angeles, and my husband is white, so my kids are half white. So I live in the heart of Empire, and I'm constantly brainwashing my kids to be like, you are not just a white person. They present white. They look white. So they could very just easily move in these spaces as if they were not Filipino at all. So I am constantly telling them, this is who you are. You are Filipino. You eat rice. You you listen to the Eraserheads. You have another language. You have a whole identity other than what mainstream America is telling you. And when you are looking at things politically also, I talk to them about politics all the time. I tell them to understand that migrants come here, like Filipinos are here because Americans were in the Philippines first, and there's a whole lot of politics around migration, and so when we talk about Donald Trump and like politics today, there's a lot of understanding that you have to do, even as children, you have to know this and you have to tell your friends, and I think that really, really helps us live in the world of today, and that helps them understand what it is, how to move in the spaces that they move in as Americans, as Filipino Americans, and I thank my father for that. I thank growing up in the Philippines for that. I thank being UP educated for that also, and my mom. But a lot of it, because I have my father's paintings to refer to, and I can show them, look what your Lolo did. It's very useful, So that's a good way to explain to them.
Thank you.
Another thing is that I have my son, he uses Santiago Bose as his school project a lot. So I have a lot of, a lot of his classmates know who Santiago Bose is.
This new generation scholarship right there.
Perhaps, Chris, from your point of view, what other aspects of Santiago Bose do you think should be explored by other curators or researchers, art historians? Yep.
I think another thing to look at is just the formal qualities of how he's making his work. We talk a lot about what is he tapping into subject-wise and content, but I think it's also how he's using these materials, how he is transferring images, how that it functions as both print and painting, the works on paper as well, the collage, assemblage qualities to it. Because I think also when you really spend time with it, the materials that he's using and how he's transforming it is also speaking to those ideas of critique. And it's not just he's doing it because it's fun, but those actual actions and how he's transforming the materials speaks to the issues that he's thinking about.
So it's going away from the mainstream art practice, especially at that time, no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know well enough like what he's thinking about in those ways, but I think it's also that the ideas that the works carry are also amplified by how the works are made, and I think that's why there is so much power to the work. And the more you spend time looking at it, you're getting more of that. It gives you more in that sense.
I just want to add about Santiago Bose being the magician. I think what made him being the magician is he's mastered the art and understanding of the Philippine mythology. His use of the magic words, Sator, Arepo, Tenet, Opera, Rotas. Those are kind of words, the anting-anting words that we see in a lot of his works, in a lot of his paperworks, handwritten in many sorts of ways, and it appears in every landscape, in every kind of mindscape, and in every kind of like abstract scape that he created. I think that his passion for mythology gave a lot of that kind of a strength and power of eternity in his work. So I think, which is always a constant reminder of what we have forgotten, or what he always kind of reminds us of what treasure and what jewel that we have that we don't need to kind of like appropriate and import something from outside lands beyond our own archipelago in order to shine and show our own pearls. So I think that's the magic of Santi, and the magic that's coming from that, the origins and the roots of our own Philippine mythology, which I think is a great legacy and a great kind of like education, kind of like reminder and anchor for our own kind of like identity. So.
Yeah, his artworks are still alive. I really, whenever I see a Santi work, it's buhay na buhay, speaking to me, like your paintings on the wall.
Any more questions or comments you want to share? Meron. Okay.
Hello. As an artist, I would like to ask, how was Santi like in the studio? Did he play loud music? Was there like, are you not allowed to enter while he's working? It's a service level question.
No, he was very accommodating. Very accommodating. That famous work, the one in Vestiges, what was the title of that one?
It's like brown man's, no, white man's burden.
But anyway, I was around when he was doing that piece, and I remember Princess Diana had just died. But, his doors were always open, and I remember he had a huge, well, the TVs were kind of clunky then. Big fat television, and he had newly installed cable television. That's why we had this CNN updates while that was going on. Constantly playing chess. He was always, there. And then aside from that, he was playing some CD, some music. So it was like multi-sensorial thing. And then he would accommodate whoever three stoner boys were visiting him. And then he'd say, oh, ito, anayin mo to. Rub that thing off, or paint this, whatever. But he was amazing, and he had no food. No food. There was nothing.
Also, when I was growing up, he was working, if he would always like work at night, so always late at night. So there's always music, but one time he was working with, so Mount Pinatubo had exploded. He was working with lahar, and he was using that as material for his paintings. Burlap ba yun? And then I think he had used it and he was waiting for it to harden like cement. And I had walked across it by accident, and I was so scared that he would get mad at me and yell at me. But he loved it. He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna keep that," And I was like, "Oh shit, okay." And then he would take like our drawings, he would put them in his work. So it was kind of like a fun, parang it was very exploratory to be in the studio with him, and you could share music with him. He always, if you were listening to good music, he would appreciate it. He would be like, "What are you listening to?" And then he would take your tapes.
So what is good music for him? Any
Ev- every-
particular?
everything from the Dead Can Dance to, I mean, really anything new, no?
Yeah.
New and old, everything.
I put Tracy Chapman on for him. He liked that. I introduced him to Tracy Chapman. He didn't listen to a lot of women, so I put Indigo Girls on. Like he liked that. Tracy Chapman, he liked that.
Yeah. No, I just add something
No,
about.
I have a very short question. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I came to know with Santi when I was in Baguio as a paper maker. No, he's really an down-to-earth artist. If you really have to go with him when he's making his art, it's like you go. It's like a natural person, a natural artist, no? Because when he went to the paper mill of Mr. Mike Parsons, the Donto Foundation, to make his own art on paper. Because Santi Bose is really a multimedia artist, no? He do everything, any kind of media, and then I think he's making a pulp painting using this leaf of I think this is used for I could not remember that, but he's into a very natural that he's making his art, and then he start talking with something else, and then one thing that it's very, very experience that I encountered with him, and he said, this is not this really as an artist, is, meron ka bang bala dyan? What? Sabi ko, I don't have any I don't have any gun here. No, mayroon kang bala dyan. He's talking of, he's looking for, do you have money?
Money.
Yeah, because I think, I don't know what he's need. So, no? Maybe we have to talk with Mr. Mike Parsons about So this is indirectly doing that. It's like an artist really doing that. So it's really nice to go with him. And I'm lucky that I experienced that working with him when I still very young then. Thank you.
That's Mr. Loreto, master paper maker and book binder. I don't know. I think so. His paper came from him.
Yes, I'm Phyllis Saballero. I just have one little question because this is my lasting, enduring memory of Santi. I'd like to know if that press of his, that antique press, he had a wooden printing press, in his studio, and you had to be quite strong to. At one point, I think it was before I was an artist. No, I was already an artist in the 70s. We were active with the AAP, Art Association, and we were helping to raise money. So it wasn't our work, or I wasn't much in it, but it wasn't even Santi's work, but he volunteered to print it, edition it, But he said, hey, Phil, you have to come up to Baguio. I'm going to edition this. I said, great, all right. So off we went. I went to Baguio. And that's when I realized that he worked at night. So we'd be up. Of course, he was smoking like a chimney. And he was in his element, all right? And he'd say, okay, turn that wheel around. But I learned so much from him, aside from going, I realized also that
Very technical, no?
It was technical, but I just could not smoke marijuana.
Or maybe the amount that he
No,
smoked.
no, because he was puffing, and I was not, no? And of course, this was secondhand smoke, okay? By, let's say, 2 in the morning, I was falling asleep. No, it was no, it was the weed. Then I said to him, look, Santi, I don't smoke, but I love the way you work, and I think this is good for you, but it's not for me. So wake me up. So you still have that press?
No, I believe it was parked in our house, but 20 years ago the house burned.
Oh no!
So the press went with it.
Oh, sayang.
I know
great.
Tita Laida was part owner of this press.
I see.
And when the Baguio Arts Guild lost the basement of the convention center, their hub, the office,
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff was moved to our place,
Oh, okay.
it was kept there, and then it all.
I see.
all
I
burned
see.
down.
All right.
Yeah.
Your father was Eric.
Yes.
I knew him when he was Eric. Yeah.
Don't say too loud.
No, I'm not. But he was very buttoned down, he's straight out of school. So it was different about 10 years later when he became what? Kidlat. No.
You're dating yourself. Okay, and with that, we'd like to formally close this session. Yes, so thank you for joining us and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.